Hi, welcome back to the channel. For the past few months and several videos, I've been talking about the key elements of career prep that's going to help you move from being just an applicant to being a very strong candidate the employer is going to want to interview. We've talked about things like resume, cover letter, networking, personal brand, and if you're an over 40 job seeker and you're feeling a bit rusty, how to approach those and use your vast experience and tie it to a strategy that's going to make you a standout candidate and ace that next interview. And now it's time to move into that second portion of landing the job. All your preparation is paid off and now you've got an interview. Now what? Let's get into it. So what is a behavioral interview? These are interviews where they're going to be talking about situations from your past, items maybe from your, they pulled from your resume. Tell me about a time when you led a team. Tell me about a time when you persuaded someone to see your point of view. Tell me about a time you ran into a challenge being part of a team. These are going to be stories that you've got. That's not the issue. The difficulty sometimes with behavioral interview is getting that down into a nice, clean, concise, engaging, and compelling story in a relatively short amount of time. The impact and care models that we're going to talk about today are going to get you there. Other interview questions could be things like fit, where they're asking you to tell me about yourself, or why this company, why this role. So it's a bit more higher level, talking a bit about what your passions are, what drives you, what are your values. We'll get into those in another video coming up, but for today, let's work on the behavioral interview using the impact and care models. And if we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Keith. Welcome to the Canadian Career Coach. This channel is focused on helping those over 40 who have found themselves needing to make a career pivot through their own choice or a choice of someone else. And how do you get back in the game? You may feel a little bit rusty going through things like resume creation and cover letter writing and networking, and this video specifically on how to do a behavioral interview. I'm here to help you align your tremendous experience that you've got with strategies that take you from just another applicant to an engaging candidate that is going to get the interview and hopefully land the job. And if you haven't watched the past videos, I highly recommend them. I know I'm biased, but a lot of the content I talk about in this video will be related back to some of the contents we talked around how to write resume bullets and networking and general communication skills that you're going to be using in your upcoming behavioral interview. Interviews can be daunting, especially behavioral interviews. Today, we're going to walk through a couple models and frameworks that are going to apply a quantitative approach to help solve the qualitative problem of behavioral interview prep. First, we're going to talk about the impact method. This process is going to help you craft compelling stories that highlight your skills and your experience and will prepare you for about 85% of all behavioral interview questions. Impact stands for individual contribution, managing or leading, persuasion or negotiation, analytical problem solving, challenge or failure, and team. Let's break that down. Individual contributions. This could also be initiative, where you're going to be sharing a story where you made a significant impact on a project or a task. Manage. This could be a situation when you led or managed a team or a project to success. Persuasion. This would be about a time when you persuaded others to adopt your ideas or approach. And maybe what was your thought process to coming up with that approach? Analytics or problem solving, highlighting an analytical skill by discussing the problem you solved using data or some other approach. Challenge. This could also be a failure or something that you've struggled with for a while, and this is reflecting on a challenge or failure, and most importantly, what you learned from it. Under the team section, this is showcasing your teamwork skills by sharing a story of collaboration. This isn't the same as leading a team. This is a story about a time when you had to step up and do something maybe you didn't necessarily want to have to do to make sure the team succeeded. Ideally, you'll want 2 stories for each, but start with 1, as interviews tend not to involve duplication of question categories. Now that we've gone through the impact categories and what those look like, let's talk about the CARE and STAR approach. STAR approach is something you're probably familiar with. That's a way to structure your answers to respond to the impact categories of questions. Under STAR, the S is for situation, the T is for task, A is for the action, and the R is for result. The CARE model is slightly different, and both can be used. And where the CARE model, as you'll see, will come into play, it stands for C is for the context, which is similar to the situation and task. It's just maybe shortening up the story a little bit. A is the same, the action. R is the same, the result. And the E is for evaluation. What did you learn from that experience? What would you maybe do different? So, depending on the questions that you're asked, if it's just about how you led a team, then maybe the STAR approach works very well and you have a very strong result. If it's a failure or weakness question where something didn't go well for you and you struggled through it, but you made it through the end, you're probably going to add a bit of a, what would I do differently next time content to the end of that question response. So to get into more detail, context is really just setting the stage by describing the situation or challenge that you faced. Action explains the actions you took to address the situation. The result, obviously, sharing the outcomes of your actions, but emphasizing positive results. And the evaluation is reflecting on what you learned and how it has shaped your approach moving forward. When you're writing these pieces out, again, chunk them out into digestible pieces. These aren't very long, 20 seconds each for all the sections, maybe putting 40 seconds for the action, because in the end, that's probably what they're really going to be hiring you for, and that's what they're listening for. And when you're doing that for your action and you're giving it a bit more time, it's because you're not going to just talk about what your actions were, but you're going to be getting into some detail as to why you chose to do that. What did you see, hear, feel, and think that made you decide on taking that specific action? Imagine you're asked about a time you led a team through a challenging project. Using the impact method, you might focus on the manage response or the challenge or failure. Then, structuring your response using the CARE model, it would look like this. For context, you would say, our team faced a tight deadline on a critical project. Under action, I organized daily check-ins, delegated tasks based on strengths, and motivated the team to stay focused. The result, we completed the project ahead of schedule, exceeding client expectations. And looking back on it, this experience taught me the importance of clear communication and team collaboration. And the powerful thing about combining the CARE model with the impact categories is that it gives you a very structured approach to build out your table. Yes, you can use a spreadsheet for this, and I highly recommend it, and my example is going to show that in a moment. A spreadsheet that'll help you map out all your interview responses. And the best part about that, apart from being organized, is that you're going to relax. When you're done this, you're going to have this 4x6 grid filled out, and you know that you're going to be ready for 85% of all interview questions. If they ask you something like, if you're a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Like the old Barbara Walters question. Yeah, that's just a really bad interview question. You can't get around that. Sometimes you'll have bad interviewers. This gets you ready for the good ones. And as you fill out this table, this is not going to be about writing long-winded sentences that you try to memorize. That will make you sound robotic. In these boxes, you're going to be writing maybe 2 or 3 short bullets that just high-level describe that portion of the story you were telling as it relates to the category that you are relating it to. So, what was the result of your actions for that management question? What was the context situation related to your story about demonstrating analytical problem solving? What did you learn from your persuasion influence story? As you see, each one of these will be filled in on that grid, just with a couple words reminding you. You're going to tell these stories a little bit different every time you answer, but where you start, where you're going, and how you're going to wrap up do not change. The goal is to break these into small, bite-sized, 20 to 30-second components that give you a clear roadmap to your answer. You may adjust the wording slightly as you practice these depending on the role, but you will know where you're going every time, and you'll be able to answer the questions confidently every time. An analogy I always use when giving an interview response, and that this model that we just talked about will benefit, is interview responses are kind of like telling your favorite joke. The tone you take and how you tell the joke and the length of time you take will depend on your situation and your audience and how that vibe is going. But regardless, anytime you tell your favorite joke, you start off in the same spot. You build up the same way. There's some sort of key twist in it, and then you land the punchline. How you deliver it might change a little bit every time, but you tell it confidently, and you don't have to memorize anything. You might have fun mixing up a little bit, depending on who you're telling it to. Interview questions broken down in those 4 key sections will help you follow that same process and allow you to respond not only effectively and resonate with the question, but you're going to have fun doing it as well. These are your stories. Celebrate them. By combining the impact and care structures, you can make relevant and powerful and engaging responses that are going to help you ace that interview. The key is the practice. Once you've got this grid laid out, you will relax. You've got it done. But your work is only half done. Now it's practicing out loud, saying it under your breath when you're driving in your car or wherever you are at that time. You need to get these comfortable being said. There is muscle memory involved in interview questions. You might have the coolest response. That's the most engaging story. But until you say it out loud, you don't know if it's a tongue twister or not. Maybe that's hard to say. Practice it. And as you go through it, if you're stumbling over some words, maybe that's not the right phrase to be using. As I do, and I prepare for some of these videos myself as I'm trying to get recorded, I have something that I think it's a really cool sound bite, but it doesn't sound natural. So I ditch it and write something a bit simpler. And it usually ends up to be better anyway. And the words are great, but you also have to practice your presentation. I should do that more often myself. Get your phone out. You've got, everyone has a camera in their pocket. Practice recording yourself. It's going to feel kind of cringy, and everybody hates watching themselves back. I always wince a bit when I watch these videos back as I'm editing them. But that's what they're going to see. You know, you don't get to control that. And especially if it's going to be a virtual interview on Zoom or Teams or whatever, they're going to be looking at you through this little camera lens. So how you present on camera, how you structure your answers, are you smiling when you're answering? These make a huge difference. Having a positive virtual presence is a competency that many people don't talk about, but it can be a game changer in whether you move on to the next round of an interview. So if this is of value to you, please consider hitting the like button or subscribing. And as always, please leave a comment down below if this has been helpful for you at all, or if I missed something that you would like covered either in a response to your comment or an upcoming video. I'm here to serve you. So if you're missing something that I'm not providing, please let me know. I want to help.